Good morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with daily technical update. It is Friday the 6th of March and this video is for educational purpose only. There's no recommendation or advice whatsoever intended. So again, a volatile day in the Euro stock market yesterday. And I will start with some of the big guys in the Dow Jones 30 industrial average index. So we had Goldman Sachs that got hit almost 4% yesterday, but it already started a few weeks ago with the sell-off. So banks, financial were hard hit yesterday, and they could be hit harder here the next few days going into next week, where we could see Goldman Sachs maybe down to around the 200 daily moving average. We saw companies, pharma companies like Merck also topping out, has actually been on a really good ride for the better part of the 6, 7, 8 months here. We could see Merck turning around, top and reversal pattern. It actually indicated top and reversal here, exhaustion. So sold off yesterday. We had industrials like Honeywell also suddenly dropping off. We had 3M. Also that's been sold off quite heavily here lately. And another one that I want to point your attention to, but it's not a part of Dow Jones index, is the Eli Lilly. And of course that is interesting both for US and European and Danish investors. The pharma company that is the biggest competitor to Novo Nordisk, the weight loss manufacturer and insulin manufacturer. We can see here yesterday it closed 2.4% down. It's flirting with the 100 moving average a couple of times. It has tested the support there at 993. Now it yesterday tested the support there at 977, closed just above it. So that will be key to watch the next few days, also into next week. Will it close below it? And will RSI close below 40 threshold? That would really be something to keep an eye on. The few stocks that went the other way and kept the market afloat just a little bit were companies like IBM that actually been hard hit in the beginning of the year, especially in February. Has bounced somewhat, but it's not back in bullish trend. And also Microsoft yesterday was fairly okay, also bouncing after a downturn that has been lasted the past 3-4 months. So also a bounce there. And of course that inflicted heavily on the Dow Jones index, as we can see here, that sell off 1.6% lower, testing support there at 47,849. So spiked a little bit below it, but it actually established a bearish trend, lower low, lower high, lower low here. Negative sentiment on the RSI, indicating likely lower levels. I think maybe we could see a little bit of a bounce today. So let's see how it looks on the future. We have the future here. It's bouncing a little bit. You can see here on the Dow Jones future that it dipped below yesterday. Once again, it's the second time in a row, 47,800 and the lower part of the cloud. But we are negative sentiment and we are in a bearish trend that was established here a few days ago. So really on a knife's edge, if it takes out the lows from yesterday, then I believe we could see Dow Jones down to around, and let's just use this one, down possibly all the way down to 46,000, 45,800. But the 200 moving average coming up there will add some support to it. Of course, it also influenced the other indices a little bit, but not as much. We can see here Nasdaq 100 actually, it was quite volatile throughout the session, but again managed to close back in the cloud and back above 24,954. So yes, it is basically just range bound. It is 24,500 at its key support here pre-market, bouncing a little bit, but nothing to speak of. We have the S&P 500 also negative day, dip below the support there, but basically in a little bit of a bearish trend, but with falling peaks or declining peaks there. So also quite how you say, be careful. It is fairly weak. The small cap index, Russell 2000, closed back below the support there at 258 and has actually established a bearish trend. You see lower lows here and now also lower highs and lower lows. It will be further confirmed if RSI closes back below 40 threshold. In Asian session this morning, we actually had a little rebound in the Hang Seng index of the 25,000 that it tested here a couple of days ago. Very close to closing this gap there, but we are in a bearish trend. Maybe we could see a little bit of a bounce towards the 26,000. I don't think we will see it much higher than that. We are under pressure here also on the Hang Seng. Nikkei also, but it's the 55 moving average there on the Nikkei future that is giving it some support. Still positive sentiment, so we have some hopes to cling on to, but if it takes out the lows here from the past few days, well, then expect lower levels, and then I think we will also see it taking out this support here at 52,945. Then we could see it down in the region around 51,800, 51,100 maybe even. Europe also got hit again yesterday, but didn't make a new low on the EuroStoxx50 index. It tested the lower part of the cloud again. It tested a 5766 support there. Negative sentiment indicating we're likely to see it break, and we could see a push down to 5700. Pre-market bouncing a little bit, so let's see about that. What will end the day, but the downside pressure is there unless really something significant, possibly positive news coming out. DAX also not a new low, but it could still do that. Negative sentiment, bearish trends. We could see it lower. A little bit of bounce indication here pre-market. It opens in about an hour. Then we still caught this range here, and we are in a bearish trend. Could push it lower, but quite volatile. So expect also quite a bit of volatility. On the FX market, on the other hand, is more or less across the board fairly calm. We had euro dollar, didn't really do much the past couple of days after the sell-off and the dip to 115.30 and below the support and rising trend line there. Still believe we could see a little bit of a bounce, but we are in a bearish trend confirmed by negative sentiment, so there is risk down to 114. Cable or sterling dollar. Also, I believe we could see a little bit of a bounce. It has bounced somewhat, but again, not much. But I think we could still see maybe next week crawling back up to test a steep falling trend line. The steeper they are, the less reliable or strong they are. So in this case, it's fairly steep, but nevertheless, you can see it follow quite nicely. If it takes out the lows there from a couple of days ago at 132.50, then we are looking at 131.60, possibly all the way down to 131. But for now, I think we will still see a little bit of calmness. Euro sterling forming this messy pattern here, but we are actually in a slightly bullish trend. I've drawn this trend line here. It's not the strongest one, but we have the 200 moving average giving some support. We could dip below it. But I think if it take out 86.60, then we could see lower levels down to around 86. But for now, it is still being held up by being not below the cloud and being above the 200 moving average. But the 55 is dragging it down there, so it's heavy in that sense. A little bit short term here. Dollar yen, will it have another go? It seems like we'll have another go at the peaks there, and if it does take out the 158, well, then I think we will be looking at 159.50, the previous peak up there, and possibly higher up to 160 area. It is a little bit cautious, but you can see 100 moving average coming up. Also, the 55 slightly rising beyond a positive sentiment, so we should crawl higher slowly. Unless it takes out the lows from yesterday, then we could see a set back down to around 156, possibly a little bit lower. Euro yen, trying to gain some upside momentum, but we are in a negative sentiment, so it will take some working to do, and it needs to take out the peak there at 184.80, the peak up here, and especially get back up her cloud. But this one is the key, and I don't think we will see that. I think we will actually see a little bit of range bound behavior here the next going into next week between 182 and 184 in this range here. So quite boring at the moment, but that's when you have to be patient, because suddenly sometimes it will move. Aussie yen still bullish trend. It is in exhausted mode, but it's been for a long time still above the rising trend line there. So keep an eye on that. And if you're trading, you can see higher high, higher low, higher high, little bit higher low. So if it takes out that low there at 109.35, then maybe we could have a bit of correction with a support down here at 107.5. The sterling yen also a bit of range bound here, but you can see the 100 moving average pushing higher. The underlying trend is bullish. Apart from the sentiment, still not convinced about that. So it needs to take out the 212 and a change up here, these peaks, and get back above the cloud. And you can see the 55 moving average kind of holding down. So also here we could be a little bit of range bound here between 209, 212 going into next week. Aussie dollar, massive volatility, but no real direction. We have positive sentiment on the RSI, but we also have divergence here. So I'm grasping at straws a little bit, and we have this spike down there that actually bounced back. So again, we had yesterday where it spiked a little bit low below this minor, keep that in mind, it's minor support just around 70. So I would say that if it takes out the lows there from a few days ago, that will really be the trigger for a larger sell-off, I believe, down to 68. But then we have the 55 moving average coming up, giving some support. So maybe it's just taking a little bit of a correctional breather before it turns around and pushes higher. And if we are looking at the weekly chart, we can see what's going on. We are in this range here between 69.5-ish area and 71.5-ish area. So that wide range there, and if I zoom out, you can see where it's coming from. So it's actually these peaks over here, and this peak is where we caught range bound. But you will see 55 weekly, 100 weekly coming up there, positive sentiment, no divergence, and 200 turning around. So the underlying trend, medium term and long term, is bullish. It's just currently a little bit of a correction going on there. Dollar Canada, also a sideways raise, trading here between 136 and 137.25 with a little spike up there. If it takes out that spike up there at 137.50, 55, then I think we could see it up to a 139 area, but range bound. If it takes out 136 to the downside, then I think we'll see the downside, the bearish trend resuming, and then we have some levels we could be looking at, 135.5 and 135 here. Negative sentiment indicating that we will breakout will be to the downside. It will be confirmed if RSI pushes back below 40 threshold. Sterling Canada seems to have found some ground here, 182, and I think we could see a little bit of a bounce up to around 183.25, possibly higher if it can break this level there. Moving on to Swiss franc, that is just gaining strength almost by the day, but has bounced a little bit here. So for now, you can say it's a little bit frustrating if you're trading it. There is a little bit of large spreads, and also because of the uncertainties and the volatility. But the negative sentiment indicating lower levels. However, as you can see, it's been rising. So the selling pressure or the downwards pressure is easing, or it is actually kind of in exhausted mode. However, if we are looking both on weekly, daily charts, still quite heavy. But we can see also here when RSI or the weekly has been down in this region here where it currently is, we sometimes see a bit of a correction. But it's not really there in the cards yet. But keep an eye on that if you're trading Swiss francs. Dollar Swiss didn't change. There we are. Dollar Swiss still flirting with this 78.25 resistance, spiking above a couple of times now. Hasn't managed to stay above. RSI has been rejected at the 60 threshold. And if it starts sliding back here, and I think that could be the early warning sign. First of all, if it takes out levels around the 77.60, and if RSI slides back below 40 threshold, expect it sliding back below 77, 76.5 region here. Unless it can really take out the spikes to the upper side, then we will be looking at 79.50. But I don't think it's a card at the moment. But let's see, the 55 moving average coming down, giving some pressure to the downside. The dollar index, 99.31 resistance here, spiked above a couple of times, could also be an exhaustion mode, and then we will have a little bit of a setback. But look at this, we have the 55 now, has turned around, we are in a positive sentiment, so there could be further upside potential. So look at if it takes out the spikes there, then we'll be looking at 100 plus 135 as the next level to look out for, our resistance level. We can see here on the weekly what's also going on. It is the 55 weekly moving average pushing it, kind of trying to keep it lower. Still negative sentiment on the RSI, but it is indeed a strong bounce. And if it moves all the way up here at 100.35 and above it, then we have a completely different situation. We have the kind of a triple bottom or something like that. But look at all the moving averages coming down. Also the cloud there is kind of holding it down quite a bit. Gold, a little bit frustrating, but keeping yourself in this rising channel here above the rising trend line. Still positive sentiment on the RSI. Testing at the trend line and the 61.8 retracement, but it's key if it takes out and moves below 5,000, then there could be further selling pressure down to 48.50. So that is key to watch. And if you're trading golds, this is a gold spot, then I'll just show you the 1 hour chart that is also quite significant. You can see what's going on. On the 1 hour, we are below the cloud here. We are below the 55 moving average. We have the 100 coming down. That is give it a couple of hours, then it will break below the 200 moving hours, moving average, and that could give it another selling pressure. So keep an eye on that. But if it takes out the lows here from the third, then it could materialize with this selling pressure and further downside for gold to possibly 48.50. So a very, very key to watch. The silver, more or less the same picture really. Also in a being pressured, and if we are looking at the 1 hour chart also here, currently below the cloud, 100 moving average down, 55 up. So a bit of a knife edge here, but what we can look at on the intraday chart, and you can also do this yourself, is actually been breaking the falling trend here a little bit. So maybe it can establish some foot ground about 85, but you need to look out for the hourly cloud there, or cloud on the hourly chart, just if you want to gain a little bit of or to see the momentum building up before it actually happens and it materializes on the daily chart. On the platinum, sideways range trading here below the cloud actually, but still positive sentiment on the RSI. Underlying trend is bullish, but it is in a correction phase. 100 moving average coming up, giving some support. So let's see if it can move back above the 55 moving average and 22.50. Well, then maybe there could be it could re-establish the bullish trend. But for now, it's also, and also intraday, it actually looks similar to silver. Copper future still above the rising trend line here. Slightly bullish trend. Positive sentiment, but it needs to get back above the 60 threshold to reaffirm or reconfirm the bullish trend, and we need to get back above 611, 614. On the energy market, WTI Crude Oil trying to push higher here today, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see it higher, but you can see there's some stronger resistance in the 80.77 area here. But positive sentiment, no divergence, indicating higher levels. But again, it's extremely volatile and sensitive to what's going on in the Middle East, of course. Brent Crude Oil basically the same picture. Potential up to $88 there, possibly higher up to 90, and that will probably drag the WTI with it. The nat gas, European nat gas, extremely volatile. I wouldn't trade it if it was me, unless I did it for a living. That would be a different thing. Positive sentiment, no divergence actually, so we can remove this one. We can actually adjust it, and then you can see, oh, there is divergence. It's actually declining slightly here. That's quite interesting. So maybe that is it. But again, I would be very cautious because suddenly something can happen, and then we have a new push up. But for now, we could see it sliding back to maybe 43 area, the support down here. US nat gas really not doing much, not affected by what's going on in the Middle East. So just trading there just around $3. On the interest rate side has been very active lately. Strong bounce on the US 10-year Treasury yield, and it's now trying to get into the cloud there above the 61.8 retracement. So could we see it pushing up to 420, 421, the 786 retracement of this drop here? It is not unlikely, but RSI could be key. Will it be rejected at 60 threshold or not? So that is something to watch out for. But if the US 10-year is sliding back here below 410, then a downtrend could be back in session. But for now, it seems like it will have a go at the 420-21 level. European yields also extremely volatile, pushed higher yesterday to the 786 retracement there at 285, and now setting back a little bit. So I actually added a Fibonacci levels. Those are the ones, and we could see maybe if it's sliding back, unless it takes out the peak from yesterday at 285.5, then we could see it up to 290. So also volatile days here for the EU 10. Also the UK 10 above the 786 retracement there, could test the 460. Currently bullish sentiment or positive sentiment is above 60 threshold. If it takes out 460, well, then suddenly we could be looking at 475. There's a little bit of resistance with these peaks here, just around 462, and not that strong. The stronger one up in this region here, 475. Japanese 10 keeps bouncing slowly, and I think we could see it bouncing towards the 2.25 here going into next week possibly. On the crypto side, that has bounced up to very close to the 38.2 retracement there at 74.50. So it would be key. Can it actually break higher there, or will it slide back? Key support at 60 threshold. The Ethereum not really doing much. 70.40 still key support. All right, that's all for today and this week. Have a nice day and weekend, and keep charting out there.